One of the common misunderstandings about Buddhism is that Buddha said life is suffering. Now one can think, why Buddha speaks about suffering? Why Buddha is so pessimistic? Isn't there anything to be happy about life? There are happy experiences that we gain in life. Why Buddha can't speak about this? Now this confusion happens when the Pali word Dukkha, which is the first noble truth, is translated to English. The most common translation for Dukkha, the word Dukkha, is suffering. From this one can think, okay, the Buddha says life is suffering. But when the Buddha used this word Dukkha in his first noble truth, Buddha meant something profound and deep. Yes, Dukkha can be understood as suffering in a more superficial meaning, but it has a more deeper meaning when the Buddha used this word in his context. So I want to show you from this video what actually Buddha meant by when he said life is Dukkha. In his book, Noble Truth, Noble Path, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi mentioned about this as follows, I quote, Buddha drew this word out from its original context and gave it a deeper significance, using it to highlight the inescapably flawed, deficient, and unsatisfactory nature of sentient beings. Now, when you consider this point of view, we can understand that not only painful experiences, but also all the experiences has this inherent nature of impermanence and also inherent nature of unsatisfactoriness. Now, by this, Buddha did not mean that life is a total misery. Buddha also speaks about happinesses and joys that we can achieve in this life. We've talked about this in a video. We've talked about the 4 types of happinesses that Buddha teaches us to achieve in life as a householder. Now, Buddha saw that there is happiness in life, there is these happy experiences in life, there are these painful experiences in life, and also there are these neutral experiences in life. But when you take a closer look at all these experiences, be it a happy experience, be it a painful experience, be it a neutral experience, all of these experiences has one thing in common, one nature in common, and that is these experiences are subject to change. They become impermanent. And as they are fleeting and as they are transient, these experiences cannot give a person a complete satisfaction, right? Because we experience these feelings and experiences, and we think this will last forever. But the true nature of every experience is that it is subjected to change. As it is subjected to change, it doesn't give you the fullest satisfaction. When you are not satisfied with that experience, there is suffering, right? Always unsatisfaction is something that is missing in your life, right? In everyone's life, in every human being's life, when you take a closer look at the person's life, there is something that is missing in life. We think, I wish I had that. I wish I had this, right? I wish I could do that and this. This unsatisfied nature is what makes the suffering. So the Buddha mentioned this in his sutras, but the Buddha said, Yada niccang tan dukkhang. What is impermanent is suffering. So the suffering doesn't occur just because of the painful feelings, because it occurs because our mind, our lives are not satisfied with these experiences. We think when we experience a happy feeling, okay, a pleasurable feeling, we think this experience will last forever. But the inherent nature of that experience is that it is changing, right? It becomes impermanent. When we experience a painful experience, what happens to us? We think this will last forever. But the nature of this is it will become impermanent, right? So There's a nice quote that I read recently about this suffering. It says, impermanence doesn't make us suffering. Wanting things to be permanent when the inherent nature of everything is impermanent is what makes us suffering, right? So wanting things to be permanent is what we call the cause of suffering. The Buddha understood the cause of suffering as tanha. Tanha can be translated into English. One of the closest translation to tanha is the thirst, right? That means there is this unsatisfied nature. When you consider the word thirst, it has this nature of unsatisfied nature, looking for something, yearning for something, right? So understand that when the Buddha used the word dukkha, he did not only refer to these physical unpleasant feelings, but he used this word to give you an idea about this unsatisfied nature of all these experiences. So it is much better to learn the word dukkha as it is and learn it and use it without translating and understand the meaning behind it. So I hope you got some idea about the word dukkha and what actually the Buddha meant by the word dukkha. So I wish you all, may all of you be able to realize the Four Noble Truths in this life. Namo Buddhaya. Buddhism is considered as the religion of meditation. But if you ask your Buddhist friend, do you meditate? They'll probably say, no, not that much. I don't meditate that much. So the real question is, do all Buddhists meditate? And should you meditate to become a Buddhist? Well, the first thing that we need to understand is that the word Buddhist means for someone who follows the Buddha's path, right? So to truly become a Buddhist, you need to follow the Buddha's advice and you need to follow the Buddha's path. At least you must try to do that, right? And just because you are born to a Buddhist family doesn't mean that you truly become a Buddhist, okay? So then you may ask, should you meditate to become a Buddhist? Well, it depends on what you mean by meditation. If you portray the meditation as sitting in a quiet place, cross-legged, eyes closed, and concentrating, then it is not the only meditation. Meditation can be practiced while sitting down, while lying down, while walking, and while standing. So these all four postures we can practice the meditation. And also, you don't always need to close your eyes to meditate, okay? So to become a Buddhist, not only meditation that we must practice, there are a lot of things that we need to include to our life. So according to the Buddha's advice, there are three main practices that we practice in Buddhism. If someone is practicing these three practices, then we can call him a Buddhist, right? So what are these three practices? The first practice is called Sila. Sila can be translated into English as virtues, right? So as Buddhists, we follow 5 virtues. Every Buddhist has to follow 5 virtues. So what are these 5 virtues? First one is abstaining from killing beings. Second one is abstaining from stealing. Third virtue is abstaining from sexual misconduct. Fourth one is abstaining from telling lies. And the fifth one is abstaining from taking intoxicants. So these are the 5 virtues that we follow. So this is the cornerstone, and this is the first step of Buddhist path, Buddhist practice. That is to be virtuous. So now you can understand, before meditating, you also need to be virtuous. Now, why we need to practice these virtues? A monk asked from the Buddha, what is the purpose of being virtuous? Or what is the purpose of practicing these virtues? Then the Buddha says, why you need to practice virtues is to stay away from regrets in your life. Okay? If you take a closer look at these 5 virtues, by doing the opposite of these 5 virtues. That means killing animals, stealing, doing sexual misconduct, and telling lies, and taking intoxicants. These actions can lead to regret in life, right? One's regret. And the Buddha showed that regret is one of the biggest obstacles for someone's peace in life. If your heart is complaining about the actions and the things that you did in the past and the things that you are doing right now, if your heart is regretting about it and complaining about it, that is a bigger obstacle to find peace in one's life. So to stay away from that regret and that disturbance to your mind, to your peace, the Buddha says, be virtuous. Live a virtuous life that your heart doesn't complain you about your actions, right? Be disciplined in a simpler way. To be self-disciplined is to practice the virtues. And then the second practice is called samadhi. Samadhi can be translated into English as tranquility. And now this includes this meditational practice, right? But also it doesn't only mean that it is only meditation. There are so many other things that we practice to tranquilize our mind. One part of it is meditation, right? You have to sit down, go to a quiet place, close your eyes and contemplate and try to focus your mind, and then little by little your mind will become tranquilized and calm and peaceful. And also by practicing the mindfulness, we can tranquilize our mind. And by doing good things like good karma, helping people, right? We can practice this tranquility of our mind. And also, the sila that we mentioned earlier will help you to achieve a tranquilized mind. So the Buddha says you must practice virtues, you must practice sila in a way that it helps the tranquility of your mind, right? That is the sole purpose of practicing the sila. And then the tranquility. Now this includes the meditational practice. And then there's the third practice that we do. This is called prajna. Prajna can be translated into English as wisdom, right? So the Buddha showed us that how to achieve wisdom in life. And what Buddha meant by wisdom is ability to understand the true nature of life, the true impermanent nature of one's life, right? To do that, you need one part of it, you need the meditation, and also one part of that, you need the wise reflection. The Buddha says how to achieve the wisdom. First, you must listen to the Buddha's advice and listen to the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings well, right? You need to listen to it, and also you need to wisely reflect on it, right? Through wise considering and through wise reasoning, you must achieve this wisdom, right? So these are the 3 practices that we do to practice Buddhism, right? Every Buddhist must practice this, right? So the first part is, in the summary, the first part is you have to be virtuous, and also then you have to practice these meditational practices, and also you have to develop wisdom. So the sole purpose of those 2 practices, sila and samadhi, is to help developing the wisdom in life. So these are the 3 practices that we do to become Buddhist. And those who practice these 3 practices, they don't need to name themselves as Buddhists. They all are Buddhists, okay? They all are Buddha's followers, okay? So I hope you got some idea about this matter today. So, wish to see you from another video. Take care. Namo Buddhaya. One of the questions that people ask from me is that they ask, is it easy being a monk? Well, I give them the answer, no, it's not easy, right? So many people think that after becoming a monk, all the problems will disappear like you're floating on a peaceful cloud, you know. Trust me, it doesn't happen, right? Monk's life is difficult, as same as any other life, right? It is not easy because if you look at our life, right, where no matter what the life is, right, no matter what level of life is, there will always be difficulties, problems, challenges. That is the nature of life. That is what the Buddha said to us. The Buddha said that is the first noble truth. What is it? Dukkha. Where there is birth, there is dukkha. There is this unsatisfied nature. There is this suffering. There is this nature of unsatisfaction, dissatisfaction. So you may think, if you're thinking that after becoming a monk, all the problems will disappear. It doesn't happen, right? But here's the thing. Yes, there is some part of the problems that you face as a householder. After becoming a monk, they will disappear, right? That is made from this lifestyle itself, right? For an example, as a householder, you have to maintain a family life, right? A family. So that part is not there in the monk's life. And as a householder, you have to have these relationships. You have to have your husband or wife, children. As a monk, you don't have them, right? And also, then as a householder, you will get invited to a lot of occasions, parties, weddings, and all the stuff. As monks, we don't go to the weddings and parties, right? So we live in the monastery. So those kind of problems, those kind of things, they will be removed by the lifestyle itself. But that doesn't mean the lifestyle becomes this monk's life is easier. Because we also have some other duties to do, right? We have also other responsibilities to do. After doing all of those things, there are the things that are easier to do actually. At the end of the day, after becoming a monk, what you're really focusing on is your spirituality, your mind. A monk is someone who is totally dedicated to the spiritual practice, his own spiritual practice, and also the spirituality and the spiritual development of the people around him. So when you work on that, right, you will face a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges, One of the biggest challenges that we face as monks is to discipline our mind. Right? As soon as you become a monk, your mind is not ready to become a monk. Okay? I always say this for people, that it takes very few minutes to make a monk physically, like become a monk physically. But it takes a lifelong practice to become a monk within, from the mind. Okay? So we are on the path of making our mind a monk. Okay? So understand that becoming a monk is not easy, okay? Same as any other life. They will have problems. They will have difficulties, right? And also, I would like to say, yes, monk's life is difficult, but monk's life is beautiful. Why do I say difficult? Because there are some difficulties, challenges that you face as any other life. That is one part, okay? And why would I say that monk's life is beautiful is that the lifestyle is made your life to be so much simple. For an example, we don't have much clothes, right? We only have 3 robes to wear. And also we don't have many things that as materials. For an example, we have only 3 robes and we have only 1 alms bowl and also a couple of books that we are using. And all the other utensils that we use in the monastery are they are for the monastery, right? When we leave the monastery, we have to leave them behind and you have to go. The only thing that remains with you that you consider as yours, your materials, is your 3 robes and some couple of books and also your alms bowl. That is the only thing that is remain. So the lifestyle is made to make your life so much simpler, okay? And the practices that we do, the monastic practices that we do, is made to make your life so much simpler and easier. And the precepts that we follow, that was given by the Buddha, the codes that we follow, is made to make the monk's life so much simpler, hassle-free, and more focused into the spirituality. So yes, there is one part of the beautiful part of the monk's life. Okay, that is beautiful. And the other part that I love to enjoy in monk's life is that being a monk, you get the opportunity to meet so many people, right? Being a preaching monk, I get this opportunity. I'm very lucky to have this in my life. I get to meet a lot of people. I get to meet a lot of people, and I get to talk with them, right? I can listen to their ideas. I can listen to their problems. I can share the Buddha's teachings with them and help them. And when I share the Buddha's teachings with them, and when they get the help, it gives me a great happiness, right? So that part I love to enjoy. Okay. And also another beautiful thing that you find in monk's life is that every single morning when you wake up, you have something wholesome to do, something that is selfless to do, right? When you wake up and when you clean your monastery, when you do the monastic chores, it gives you that idea that yes, you're doing something for yourself as well as the others also. So these are the parts that we enjoy as monks, okay? And also one part, this is not only separated for monks' life, but also anyone can do that. We enjoy by listening and learning the Buddha's teachings, okay? You get a lot of time to learn the Buddha's teachings and observe and analyze the Buddha's teachings and practice the Buddha's teachings. So these are the beautiful parts of the monk's life. So don't think that monk's life is easy and hassle-free and problemless. No, as any other life, we also have problems, but we are working through them, right? We are practicing our mind to make our mind strong enough to face these problems, face these challenges through the Buddha's teachings. So I hope you got some idea about monk's life. So I wish you, may you be happy and may you be healthy. Namo Buddhaya. So many people think that when it is said in Buddhism that let go of attachments or let go of the desires, they say, oh, the Buddha said, let go of all the things. One of the false complaints that given to the Buddhism is that the Buddha said, let go of everything and you will be happy. Buddha never said such thing, right? When we understand the attachment, how we understand is something, it is referred to an object. Okay? So we always think that when we need to let go of the attachment, if we need to let go of the attachment, we need to let go of a thing. Well, it is wrong. Why? Because let's say, okay, if the attachment was an object, if we let go of that, okay, then we will be able to completely let go of that thing and completely not think about it. But see, so many people lose things, They have to let go of things and still they are thinking about the things that they lost. So the attachment is not always an object, right? In fact, we can't completely let go of things, right? As humans, we need things. We have to use things, right? There's a funny saying that says, your human body is always touching something, right? You can't get rid of this, right? When you're standing, you're touching the ground, right? When you're standing and when you're sitting down, wherever you go, your clothes are touching you. If you want to live untouched by anything, then you have to float in the space, right? Naked. But here's the thing. Even though you do that, you can't completely let go of things. Why? Because your body is something. It is an object. So you can't let go of things. So you understand that when we say letting go of attachment, it doesn't mean letting go of things. You can be with things, you can use things, you can have whatever the thing that you want and still not be attached to. So I want to share with you what it really means to let go of the attachment. This is what Buddha meant by letting go of the attachment. The Buddha says, they are not sensual pleasures, the pretty things in the world. A person's sensual pleasure is a lustful intention. The pretty things remain just as they are in the world, but the wise remove the desire for them. So understand, Buddha said that pretty things remain the same in the world. Let the pretty things, let the nice things and the beautiful things remain in this world the same. Let it be there. Don't disturb them, right? Don't destroy them. What we need to really let go is let go of the desire. Remove the desire for them. Now, when we say that, the people understand that, okay, if I let go of the desire, will I be able to enjoy that? Well, understand. When you let go of the desire only, you can truly enjoy that. Right? For an example, desire means trying to keep it for yourself, right? Trying to hold on to it and not letting it to change, and you don't like to see the things change, right? You try to make it mine, you try to make it yourself and keep it for yourself. That is what desire does, right? When you do that, what we do is we destroy the beauty of things. For an example, this is a nice story that it is my personal experience, right? When I was at home, I got the chance to go to, when I was at home, I went a lot of hikes, right? I got the chance to go to this beautiful mountain in Sri Lanka. And we were on the top of the mountain, and it was so beautiful. The whole area was covered with mist, and we can see from time to time, we can see faraway places, right? It was so beautiful, so stunning, right? And then I wanted to take a picture of this. I wanted to keep this memory in mind, right? I wanted to take this in mind. So this is desire, right? So what I did was I was searching for my camera. And while I was searching, right, it took a few minutes to search. The whole area got covered with mist. And I could not take the picture. And I lost the ability, few seconds, few minutes, to enjoy the surrounding. That is what happens to us. When we try to make things ourselves, right, when we try to hold tightly to the things, we destroy the beauty. There's a nice story that I read recently about this. The story says that a boy found a beautiful and a cute rabbit on the road, right? So the boy fell in love with this rabbit. He wanted to take this rabbit home. So what he did, he grabbed the rabbit, and he grabbed the rabbit so tightly, just because that the grip was so tight, right? He was grabbing and holding the rabbit so tightly. The rabbit was so delicate, the rabbit died on the arms of that boy. The story says that when we hold on to things too much and make things like myself, and not letting things to change, and when the inherent nature of things is the changing, we destroy the beauty of things. What we do when we let go of the desire is we let the things be the things, right? And we enjoy the things as they are. When it changes, we see the change. We observe the change, and we understand the change. Why? Because we have realized that everything is subject to change. So when you let go of the desire, that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy. Truly, you can enjoy only when you let go of this, holding on tightly and not expecting things not to change, right? So understand that when we say let go of the attachment, it is not about a thing. It is about this expectations to things to be permanent, and we let go of the desire for them so that we can enjoy this beauty of the world as it is. So keep this little idea in your mind. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome everyone to another video. From today's video, I would like to share some thoughts about going for refuge to these three jewels or three refuges in Buddhism. Now, traditionally, all Buddhists go for refuge to these three gems or three jewels. And in other words, we call them three refuges, right? And it is a traditional way, and most of the time, the traditional Buddhists, they do it as a chanting, right? Whenever they do their prayers, they say, Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, I go for refuge to the Buddha. Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, I go for refuge to the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings. Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, I go for refuge to the Sangha. the monastic and the spiritual community. So one can think, okay, it is same like the other religions, you know. You go for refuge, you believe in this Buddha and his teachings and the monastic community. It is same. But if you take a closer look at going for refuge, the process of going for refuge, there's a clear reason. There's a clear reason why we do this, right? And also we have to remember that just because we chanted Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, just because we chanted that I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, doesn't mean that you truly go for refuge to the Buddha. Okay, so there's a way to do that. So let's discuss how we should do this. First of all, what are these three jewels? The first jewel or the first refuge in Buddhism is called Buddha. Buddha is the historical Buddha, the greatest teacher who taught the Buddhist teachings to all of us, the greatest teacher who taught the reality of life. So we consider him as the teacher, right? The guiding light of our life. So why we go for refuge to the Buddha? Sometimes some people can say, okay, now you're believing the Buddha as a god. No, it is not the same way, because Buddha wasn't a god, and nor did the Buddha claim himself to be a god, right? So the Buddha was a simple human like all of us who achieved something beyond that an average human could achieve, the liberation. So why we go for refuge to the Buddha? It is because he's the biggest role model of our life, right? So to have an inspiration from a character, we go for refuge to the Buddha. When we go through the difficult times and hard times in our life, we can always relate to the Buddha's life and say, okay, if Buddha faced such kind of adversities and difficulties, how would Buddha do this, right? So then you can follow the Buddha's life and Buddha's role model. You take the Buddha as the role model and it becomes the biggest inspiration for our life. So that is why we go for refuge to the Buddha, right? So the correct way to go for refuge to the Buddha is to consider the Buddha as the biggest role model of our life, and to learn from his character and to follow his character as well. Okay? Or even though we cannot follow his fullest character, at least we can try some of his amazing qualities in his life. Okay? So that is the first thing and the first reason why we go for refuge to the Buddha, right? And then the Dhamma, that is the second jewel or the second refuge in Buddhism. Dhamma is the Buddha's teachings. Now, why we go for refuge to the Dhamma? It is to consider it as the framework of our spiritual practice. Buddha taught his amazing teachings for 45 years. And these teachings we consider as the Dhamma, right? So these teachings gives us amazing help to live our life and to understand the true meaning behind our life, right? So to provide this framework, provide this path, we go for refuge to the Dhamma. Now, how to truly go for refuge to the Dhamma is to practice it, right? Follow the Buddha's teachings and practice it. And that is the correct way to go for refuge to the Dhamma, okay? So first we take the role model and we follow his character, and also we follow his teachings, the Buddha's teachings. And third jewel, or the third refuge, is Sangha, the monastic community, the spiritual community who have achieved the levels of spirituality. Okay? Why we go for refuge to the Sangha, or this monastic community, or the spiritual community, is to give us the support for our spiritual practice. Because we all know we can't do this all alone. We need a community. Everyone needs a community of people to grow. So when we get together and when we get in touch with this spiritual community, we can take advice from them. We can take the experiential advice from them and grow ourselves, right? So as a help, as a support for our spiritual practice, we go for refuge to the Sangha, the monastic community. So this is why we go for refuge. And this is the real reason behind going for refuge to the Triple Gems. So I hope you got some idea about the three refuges in Buddhism. So I wish you all, may all of you be healthy, happy, and peaceful. Namo Buddhaya. Okay, we are going to answer this question. This is one of the most common questions that most of the young people ask from me. Can Buddhism be explained through science? First of all, before answering this question, we need to clarify what is the objective of science and what is the objective of Buddhism. The objective of science, to simply say, to observe the outer world, explore the outer world. For an example, science, what science does is it observes this outer world, the planets, how the world works, how the nature works, how the technology works, how the current works, how the atoms, protons, neutrons, quarks, and this dark matter, everything works. The outer world, the material world. While Buddhism explores how it works within you, right? How the world that is within you works. Your mind, your consciousness, your perception, right? How these things form and how these things work. And also, Buddhism gives you the support to make your life, make your inner self better. Okay? So, to simply say, science explores the outer world, and Buddhism and spirituality, spiritual practices, explore the inner world. Okay? Now one can ask, can I explain Buddhism and can I prove Buddhism that is true through science? Not always you can do that. Because if you try to understand Buddhism through this perspective of science, through the scope of and through the frame of science, it's something like this. You're trying to explain something that goes into two opposite ways. Because science observes the outer world and Buddhism and spiritual practices observe the inner world. Can you fully explain what is within you through the science? No, because there are some parts that goes beyond the scientific experiments, scientific explanations. Okay? And there are some parts that spiritual practices and all these practices doesn't agree with science. Okay? So we need to understand that these two things serve different purposes, that we need to use these two things in different contexts and different places because we need both. One can say, I've heard people say that we don't need science, we just need spirituality, we just need Buddhism, we just need meditation. No. Without science, right, without the advancement of the science, how can we thrive? Right? How can we make this world a better place? Look around us, right? Look how many things that science, how much better things that science has made. For an example, I'm talking to you, right? You're watching this video. Why? With the help of the science. Okay? So yes, we need science to thrive. We need science to make this world a better place, right? But we need to understand, science only cannot make this world a better place. Because science can make the material things better, give you the material comfort, make everything convenient, right? Make everything comes to your tip of your hand, right? And understand everything, the complexities of this universe. Science will do that. While Buddhism, spirituality will answer your spiritual problems, right? To make your life a better one, make your inner self more kind, right? More compassionate, more calmer person, right? It will help you to build up your inner qualities, inner values, right? So we need to practice and we need to understand these two things together, but we should not mess these things up. Okay? So then the question is, can Buddhism be explained through science? Up to some part, not everything. Okay, because simply it goes into two different ways. Okay, so we need to understand science as science, right? When we learn science and when we understand science, we need to understand it as it is. And when we come to Buddhism, we should not take the perspective of science to Buddhism and understand it, right? We should understand it as it is, because it serves a different purpose. So when you practice these two in balance, right, And when you understand clearly what are the purpose of these two practices are, then it will be easy for you to practice and develop your outer self and also develop your inner self. Okay, so I hope you got some idea about the science and Buddhism. So I wish you all, may you be healthy, may you be happy, and may you be peaceful. Namo Buddhaya. How do I become a Buddhist and how I convert to Buddhism? This is an FAQ that most of the Buddhist monks been asked by people. They ask like, how can I become an officially Buddhist? How can I convert to Buddhism? Well, when you ask that question, it is very difficult to give an exact way of converting to Buddhism, like ceremonial way, because in other religions there is this process, there is a ceremonial way of converting to that religion, like baptism, right? But it is in Buddhism, and there is no process or there is no ceremony of baptism, right? But the process, the way that is a process that is very closer to the conversion, that you can say converting to Buddhism, is going for refuge to the triple gems, or going for refuge to the three refuges in Buddhism. Now, we've discussed about the three refuges in Buddhism in another video. If you like to learn about what three jewels and three refuges in Buddhism are, you can check out that video as well. So the three jewels or three refuges in Buddhism is, first one is the Buddha, right? Or the historical Buddha himself. And the second jewel or second refuge in Buddhism is the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings. And the third refuge is the Sangha, or the monastic community. So if you follow the Buddhist path, one must take refuge in these three refuges, right? Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Buddha and Buddha's teachings and the monastic community. Now, why we go refuge to the Buddha? There's a reason behind it. We go for refuge to the Buddha considering him as our inspiration, right? We always look up to his life, way of life, right? And we adopt those valuable qualities to our life. We try to follow his life, character, right? Although we can't follow it for the perfection, we must try to do that. We must learn from his life, right? So as the inspiration, as the role model of our spiritual path, spiritual practice, we go refuge to the Buddha. That is the purpose behind going refuge to the Buddha. And the second, the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings, why we go for refuge to the Buddha's Dhamma or Buddha's teachings is because it provides the framework for the spiritual practice, right? It provides this framework to us to follow the path. Okay, so we must have the confidence to follow that. It doesn't mean that you have to blindly believe it, right? It doesn't mean that you have to have the blind faith. You cannot have any questions, right? In Buddhism, there is no anything that is unquestionable, right? Everything can be questioned, right? You may have doubts, you can have doubts, right? Doubts are always seen as sign of improvements according to Buddhism, because Buddha says that if someone thinks, right? If someone thinks about the reality of life, he may have some questions, right? So that he goes on asking the questions, what is the meaning behind this life, right? What should I know? How should I see this life? So when he asks questions, then he gets the answers, okay? In that way, he must seek something. So in Buddhism, we follow the Buddha's teachings by asking questions and by self-exploration and putting it into practice, not just because merely we believe in it, okay? That is the purpose of going refuge to the Buddha's teachings. It provides us the spiritual framework. And why we go for refuge to the Sangha or the monastic community is because they provide us the spiritual support, the living spiritual support, right? So to get that spiritual support, we need to have confidence on them. So what we do, we go for refuge to the Sangha, right? So these are the three refuges in Buddhism. Now, how to go refuge to the Buddha and Dhamma and Sangha, these three jewels and three refuges? There is this traditional way of doing it. That is by chanting it, that Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. We chant it for 3 times. And that is the traditional way of going for refuge. You can closely say that this is the way of converting to Buddhism. But here's the thing. Just because you said it, or just because you chanted that Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, I go for refuge to the Buddha, I go for refuge to the Dhamma, I go for refuge to the Sangha, the monastic community, doesn't mean you actually become a Buddhist. Right? Because all these refuges follows, and it provides a purpose. We need something to do in it. So what we need to do is we need to follow the path, follow the practice, follow the Buddha's advice, right? If you're following the Buddha's advice and if you're putting it into practice, okay, if you're practicing it within you, then you can call yourself as a Buddhist. But understand, the term Buddhist did not exist in the Buddha's time, right? One of the closest words that we can find that is we can call to as a Buddhist is an ancient word is Buddha Savaka, which gives the meaning of listeners of the Buddha or followers of the Buddha, right? So to become a follower of the Buddha, you can't just merely chant it and just it becomes okay. It doesn't happen like that. Okay, what do you have to do? If you are a follower, you must follow it. You must practice it, right? And confidence in Buddhism or faith in Buddhism always seen like a questionable way of understanding, right? Explore it by yourself, see it for yourself, find it for yourself, and then take it into yourself. Okay, so that is the way to become a Buddhist in the true Buddhist, right? Remember that just because you said that you are a Buddhist, or just because you chanted these lines that I go for refuge to the Buddha, doesn't mean that you truly become a Buddhist. What you have to do is put it into practice. Live in that practice. Okay, so I hope you got some idea about how to become a Buddhist. So in a short answer, there is no conversion or no baptism in Buddhism. What you need to do is follow the Buddha's path. Keep this in your mind. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome and welcome back to another video. From today's video, we're going to talk about wisdom, how to understand it, and what helps all of us to develop this wisdom. Now, what is the common idea about wisdom in the world? There's this common misunderstanding about wisdom, that is, they say that people who know more and they're wise, right? To be wise, you have to know more. In one sense, it is correct, but it is not always correct, right? The people who know more are not always wise, right? And also, even though you learn more and more, it doesn't mean you become a wise person, right? There's a nice saying about wisdom that says, intelligence or knowledge is to understand that tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is to not to put it in a fruit salad, right? So understand that yes, knowledge is a power, right? Knowledge is a superpower that gives all of us a good experience about this world and good understanding about this world. But if we did not develop the wisdom, right? If we did not understand what wisdom is, then we may not be able to be wise, right? So what is wisdom? Wisdom can be understood as this. Wisdom is the ability to understand what is good and what is bad. Wisdom is the ability to understand what brings happiness to yourself and to the others, and to implement those things that you can do, right? And also, the Buddha explains about the wisdom as follows. The Buddha says, and what is the power of wisdom? Here, a noble disciple is wise. He possesses the wisdom that discerns arising and passing away, which is noble and penetrative and leads to the complete destruction of suffering. This is called the power of wisdom. Now, according to the Buddha, The wisdom is to understand the reality of life. That means the impermanence of life, right? The Buddha says that the inherent nature of life is that it is subjected to arising and passing away. And arising and passing away. This is the common phenomena of impermanence, right? So if someone can understand and if someone can realize this true nature, and that person is wise. That is the Buddha's explanation about wisdom. Because Buddha always focuses on understanding the reality of life. Okay? So Buddha explains what are the things that helps all of us to develop this wisdom, how to be a wiser person. These are the things that Buddha taught us to be a wiser person. You should implement these. You have to associate these things to be wise. So the Buddha explains these 4 things that helps us to develop wisdom. The first thing is, the Buddha says, association with superior persons will help you to develop the wisdom. That means the people who we associate is really crucial, it's really important when it comes to development of the wisdom, right? There's a wonderful saying that says, who you are is the average of 5 people who you closely associate, right? Take a look at the people who you closely associate, right? Or 5 people. So who you are is the average of those 5 people. So association is really, really important when it comes to development in life, development in spiritual life and also material life, both, right? So that is why you need to hang out with people, to stay with people who can inspire you, who can motivate you, who can guide you to a correct path, right? So that is why the Buddha says, associate with a person who is superior to you in wisdom, right? In spiritual practice, if you're following the spiritual practice, you have to associate with someone who is superior to you, right? So the Buddha says, always try to be with someone who has higher qualities than you, or someone who has equal qualities to you. But never associate with people who has lower qualities than you, right? So that is why the Buddha said, to develop the wisdom, you need to have a good companionship. You need to have a good association with people, right? And the second thing that Buddha explains that helps all of us to develop wisdom is hearing the good Dhamma, right? Hearing about the reality of life, listening to the reality of life. When it comes to a spiritual practice, when it comes to Buddhism, the Buddha says that you need to listen to the Buddha's teachings. You need to learn the Buddha's teachings and wisely reflect on it, right? When you do that, the wisdom develops, right? The Buddha says, proper attention. Next thing is the proper attention. You have to listen to the Dhamma, and also you have to have proper attention when listening and also while practicing. So as the final thing, the Buddha explains, practice in accordance with the Dhamma will help you to develop the wisdom, right? That means when it comes to Buddhist practice, you need to follow the Buddha's path, follow the guidance of the Buddha and practice it. And then you can develop the wisdom in Buddhist practice. So these are the 4 things that helps all of us to develop the wisdom. The first thing is association with superior people, proper people, and good people. Second thing is hearing the good Dhamma, listening to the Buddha's teachings, and proper attention to the Buddha's teachings. And then finally, practice in according to the Buddha's teachings. These are the 4 things that will help us to develop the wisdom in Buddhist path. So I hope you got some idea about wisdom today. So I wish may all of you be happy, healthy, and may all of you be able to be wise in this very life. Namo Buddhaya. One of the most common questions that most of the Buddhist people ask from Buddhist monks is that they ask, I did this action, is it a sin? And they say, like, if I did this action, if I do this, will it be a sin? So it turns out that sin is a big concern People have a big concern about sin. So from today's video, we're going to be discussing about the perspective of sin according to Buddhism. Do and should Buddhists believe in sin? So first of all, before understanding do and should Buddhists believe in sin, we must understand what sin is. The word sin was originated from Old English word sin, which spelled as S-Y-N-N. And it also has the roots of this Old Norse word sind, S-Y-N-D. Collectively, the word sin describes or defines the transgression of the divine law. That means going against divine law. Especially in Christianity and most of the monotheistic religions, sin is often understood as going against the divine commandments, right? There is an all-powerful, almighty, and all-knowing deity and God, and this God makes these commandments and laws, and if someone goes against these, and if someone goes against these laws and break those laws, that person is called a sinner. And the people who commit sins, right, the people who do sins, they will be punished by the Almighty God, right? That is the common framework of sin according to the monotheistic religions. Now let's turn into the Buddhism, the perspective about sin according to Buddhism. Well, in Buddhism, the word sin is not used. There is no any place that Buddha used the word sin, because sin requires an all-powerful, almighty deity, right? As there is no statement of all-powerful, almighty deity, and there is no any involvement of deities, all-powerful deity in Buddhism, the morality according to Buddhism is governed by, not by the sin, but by the karma. Karma can be understood as the natural law of cause and effect, right? It is something like gravity. Like if you throw something into air, because there is gravity, it will eventually fall down as a result of throwing that, as a result of the gravity, right? In the same way, the Buddha explains, if you do something with evil intentions and negative intentions like hatred, anger, delusion, and greed, these intentions, right, the actions that were led by these intentions will lead to negative consequences, because in the beginning the cause and the intention was negative. If the cause is negative, then the consequence is negative. And if some actions were led by positive intentions like compassion and kindness and empathy and wisdom, these actions will lead to positive consequences, right? So it's simply like this. If you plant a seed, right, you will get the fruits according to that seed. Let's say you plant a mango seed, you will get mangoes, right? You plant a grape seed, you will get grapes. In the same way, the Buddha says, if you do the things with evil intentions, right, hatred, anger, delusion, the suffering follows that person. And if someone does actions with positive intentions, kindness and compassion, wisdom, then the happiness will follow. So it is simply how the world works, how the universe works. Okay, so the karma is always, we need to understand, karma is not just the action, karma is the intention behind our action. Okay, so according to the law of karma, when a person do certain kind of actions with certain kind of intentions, these kind of actions will lead to the consequences that eventually that person will experience, right? And one of the major differences between sin and karma is that in sin it requires the forgiveness from a deity, forgiveness from the divine, right? In karma is something that you must work through yourself. And there is no any statement of any concept of being forgiven by a deity in karma, right? Instead, you must take the responsibility of your own actions and you must work through yourself and change your behavior. So that is how we understood the karma. So then you may ask, will the word sin applies to Buddhism? In the sense of this monotheistic religious meaning, it does not apply. So we need to understand the moral ethic. The morality according to Buddhism is governed by the actions, the intentional actions of each and every individual. So this is the main explanation about the karma and sin according to Buddhism. So I hope you got some light about the sin and the karma. So I wish you all happiness and peacefulness and good health. Namo Buddhaya.